Mr. Camarota, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Chair and the committee for inviting me. My name is Stephen Camarota, and I am Director of Research at the Center for Immigration Studies. My testimony today is based on a recent report published by the Center. This analysis reports the fiscal costs of illegal border crossers based on some fiscal estimates developed by the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine earlier this year, or I should say last year, for immigrants by education level. These calculations are based on some pretty well-established facts about illegal immigrants. First, there is agreement that illegal immigrants overwhelmingly have modest levels of education. The vast majority either didn't graduate high school in their home country or have only the equivalent of a high school education. There is also agreement that immigrants who come to America with modest levels of education, regardless of legal status, create more in cost for government than they pay in taxes. Now, taking the likely education level of illegal border crossers and combining them with the net fiscal estimates from that National Academy studies shows that on balance, if you take all the taxes that they're likely to pay in their lifetime, given their education levels, and all the services and costs they create, there's a net drain on taxpayers of about $75,000 per illegal border crosser, or about $7.5 billion per 100,000 illegal border crosser. This figure is only for the original illegal immigrant. It doesn't count their descendants. We can do that. That's also in the study from the academies. If we apply those estimates, then the cost would rise to about $94 billion per illegal immigrant and their descendants, or about $9.4 billion per 100,000. Now, to be clear, the fiscal costs of illegal immigrants is not due to the fact that they don't want to work. It's not even due to the fact that many work off the books. Rather, it reflects their educational attainment. In the modern American economy, people with this skill profile, native-born immigrant or legal immigrant or illegal immigrant, pay less in taxes than they use in services. There's pretty much absolute agreement on that. Now, what these cost estimates do is give us an idea not only of what illegal border crossers cost, but they let us evaluate the likely savings that different enforcement strategies create for taxpayers versus what these enforcement strategies might cost. So, for example, a newly released study by the Institute for Dissent Analysis indicates that perhaps 1.7 million new illegal immigrants will successfully cross our border in the next 10 years. Now, if that's the case, and no one knows what the future holds, of course, but if that were to happen, and given these costs, it means that if we were to stop just 9 to 12% of those expected crossers over the next decade, it would generate $12 to $15 billion in savings, which might be enough to pay for a wall. In effect, the wall could pay for itself, even if it only kept out a small fraction of the people expected to come. Now, recently, the Cato Institute evaluated my analysis, and they argued that the illegal immigrants weren't as unskilled as I thought they were, based on my analysis of the data. But even so, they still found that the average illegal border crosser would pay creates a fiscal deficit of $43,000, or $4.3 billion per 100,000 illegal crosser. Now, Cato, in their analysis, also tries to argue that state and local government costs, which are in the National Academy studies, shouldn't count because it's the federal government that's building the wall. Now, this argument doesn't make sense to me, but ultimately that's up to Congress, whether to count the state and local costs. But it seems reasonable to me to do so. Now, finally, I just want to make one more point about the costs that come from the National Academies. They employ a concept called net present value, which calculates the fiscal impact. But this concept, which is commonly used by economists, has the effect of reducing the size of the drain that unskilled immigrants will create because it discounts the costs in the future. If you didn't do that discounting, the costs are much higher, about roughly double, about $150,000. So if you want to do a different calculation where you don't discount the future, that's what you would get. But the bottom line from this analysis is that unskilled immigration, which characterizes most illegal immigration, is very costly to taxpayers given their education and given the realities of the modern American economy that pays the less educated relatively low wages, coupled with the existence of a large and well-developed administrative state. It's not, the fiscal cost they create is not a moral defect on their part. It's simply the reality of education. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and I look forward to your questions.